Hello, everybody. My name is Ratnos, and today we have some pretty big news that has just come in around tank tuning. This is something that I talk about a lot, and that recently there have been several bugs discovered surrounding incoming tank damage. So, about a week and a half ago, somebody discovered that Vengeance Demon Hunter's Demonic Wards passive, which causes them to take like 15% reduced magic damage, and actually some reduced physical as well, was being doubly counted. So they were actually taking an extra 15% less magic damage. And on top of that, it was discovered that the bottom row of the Pelagos tree, the Let Go of the Past trait, was working in reverse. So you were taking 3% more magic damage rather than 3% less when you had that trait rolled up, that was fixed. That was fixed a couple days ago. But now we have a pretty big set of changes coming in. So here's the change. Recently, blah, blah, we found this bug, and the spec's overperforming. So because of how people feel, because Vengeance is strong relative to other tank specs, we feel we need to act quickly. We plan to fix this bug during the scheduled weekly maintenance next week, so March 30th in NA. To reduce the impact on Vengeance tanks and their groups, we plan to make an additional change to offset the bug fix. And we also want to address feedback that we've heard about overall tank survivability in Shadowlands, especially in M+, which this has been feedback that I've been part of the crowd on. With the fix to the Vengeance Demon Hunter bug, so you're no longer going to be double counting that 15%. So effectively, instead of Demonic Wards giving you 30% in the bugged form, it'll be giving you 15% magic damage reduction. We will increase the passive by 5%. So let me log over to my Demon Hunter so that I can take a look at what this passive does and show you guys exactly what they're doing with this. Okay, so increasing this by 5%, which actually, again, like I was saying earlier, Demonic Wards actually applies for Vengeance Demon Hunters to both magic and physical damage, right? So if you look here, Demonic Wards, your tattoos reduce magic damage taken by 24% and physical damage taken by 15%. Now, the reason that the magic damage actually up there is 24 is because I have slotted in this guy. Demonic Wards also reduces magic damage taken. So if you take that away, it's actually just doing all damage taken, right? All damage taken by 15%. So the way this was bugged to work was all damage by 15% and then magic damage by an additional 15%. They're taking away that bugged additional 15% magic damage, but they're upping the overall passive by 5%, so it'll be all damage taken by 20%. So in most cases, physical damage is most of the damage you take. That's true. So the result should be a manageable increase in the total damage taken by Vengeance tanks. In fact, this is, yeah. I mean, in many cases, this will still be a damage reduction to Vengeance as well. And then they're also adjusting all other tank specs passives, such as Veteran of the Third War for Blood Death Knight, to add an effect that reduces overall damage taken by 10%, to improve tank durability for all tanks, which is huge. I mean, 10% DR across the board for every other tank spec except for Vengeance is massive. So here's the table that WoW had made here, Squishy made, of the different tanks, what's happening to them, to kind of make this clear. Every tank except for Vengeance is just taking 10% more, or 10% less damage of all types, right? Physical and magic. Vengeance will be gaining 5% physical damage reduction and losing 10% magic damage reduction. So there's a couple different ways to analyze these changes. One is just through the lens of like M+ in general. In M+, 80% of the damage or something you take, it depends on the dungeon, depends on the affixes, is going to be physical. And so even for Vengeance Demon Hunters, even though the magic damage is going to be increased by more than the physical damage is going to be reduced, this will still be an overall damage taken reduction throughout the dungeon. My suspicion for Vengeance relative to the content as well, so just taking Vengeance Demon Hunter against a dungeon or Vengeance Demon Hunter against a raid next week versus this week, is that it will be easier. It will be a buff to Vengeance Demon Hunter, a very small one, in most cases, with the exception of certain magic damage intensive fights or moments where it'll be a little bit of a nerf. But the thing about Vengeance is that you're actually so strong against magic damage, right? Like we were just talking about this trait, right? Demonic Wards also reduces magic damage taken by 9%. You literally just activate this trait, right? Drop an endurance, drop one other conduit or change an endurance conduit into this trait, and you've effectively removed the nerf entirely at the cost of 1 conduit slot, and you've gained a 5% physical damage reduction, which is huge, right? 5% physical damage. I mean, physical damage is what kills you most of the time. So from that perspective, for Vengeance Demon Hunters, I suspect that you will feel tankier next week than you did this week in most cases. It's very hard to die to magic damage as this spec. You have so many tools to deal with it. You have a legendary you can even make if you really need to, but you also, I mean, just the conduit options. And in general, Vengeance will still be the tankiest or tied for the tankiest against magic damage. But relative to the other specs, they are catching up on that magic damage front by a lot. So other tanks will also start to feel more immune to magic damage. And the physical damage reduction is massive as well that the other tanks are getting. 10% reduction in physical damage taken is huge, especially for specs that look at incoming damage pre-mitigation to determine their stuff like the size of their Death Strike, or the size of their. I guess it's mostly the size of the Death Strike. This is big Blood Death Knight buff. Just a damage reduction effect, a 10% damage reduction effect for that spec is actually pretty massive. But every single spec here that's not Vengeance Demon Hunter this is a huge buff. And in terms of the metagame, specifically for like dungeons going forward, I think this is another piece of good news for the specs that were close but slightly behind Vengeance. And I think particularly stuff like Blood Death Knight, Prop Warrior, Guardian Druid, honestly even Brewmaster and Prop Pally, but those are the ones that I'm most excited about for this change in terms of like dungeons next week. Thinking a little bit further term about the impact of this into next patch, my suspicion is actually that this is still fine for Vengeance in terms of your raid spot if you're a Vengeance Demon Hunter tank. My guess is that it's still going to be valuable to have a Vengeance Demon Hunter, especially if you don't have a good Havoc Demon Hunter. I mean, to provide the Chaos Brand, you need if you're in a Mythic raiding environment, that Chaos Brand is still mandatory. And so, however, if you do have a Havoc Demon Hunter, which Havoc Demon Hunter has been getting buffed, they got buffed in 905. Their damage is quite good already now, and it potentially could get even better if they get buffed again, which I think seems likely, given there's still a perception of them being pretty weak. Then maybe raids will shift away from the Vengeance Demon Hunter, at least, I mean, right now. If you look at the metagame right now, if we go to Raider.io, if you look at these top raid clears, like, okay, so if you look obviously at the first couple kills, all of these have Vengeance Demon Hunter, but the thing is, even if you go like 20 pages down, all the guilds you'll find, like almost all of these Sire kills also have Vengeance Demon Hunters in here. That's, okay, my thing is being a little weird, but if we just open like 4 of these at random here, okay, that button didn't do what I wanted it to do. All right, here we go. This time for sure. Sire Denathrius. Vengeance Demon Hunter. This one. Sire Denathrius. No Vengeance Demon Hunter. All right. This is about to be a very embarrassing video for me. Come on, I need 2 more Vengeance Demon Hunters to make my point. Vengeance Demon Hunter, alright, it all comes down to this one. Guild 404. What do we have here? Vengeance Demon Hunter, okay, nice. So yeah, 3 of the 4 guilds I just surveyed at the World 400 level had that Vengeance Demon Hunter, and my suspicion is that's going to be a little bit less mandatory. My suspicion is that the other tanks are catching up now in terms of just being extremely durable, and Vengeance is getting a little bit of a nerf here. The main nerf I would like to stress, though, is relative. It's relative to other tank specs. In terms of absolute value, I believe that Vengeance has gone ever so slightly up, because I think that in general, you would take this... Like, if somebody came to me today and offered me the option to push this button as many times as I wanted, I would probably press it more than once. If I could press a button that gave me 5% physical damage reduction and took away 10% magic damage on my Vengeance Demon Hunter, I'd probably press that button a couple times. But it's not a super high value button to press. So against the current content, I'd say slight buff for Vengeance. Relative to the tank meta, of course, a huge buff to all the other tanks that I think is going to do a good job of bringing them into line. I would look at whether there's maybe a couple of more targeted buffs at the bottom 1 or 2 specs out of these that can be delivered, and maybe ways of preserving identity without just amping up the damage reduction across the board going forward, but overall, I think this is minor nitpicks. I think that in general, this is a really good way to come at this bug fix, this bug that was identified. And yeah, I mean, the good news is basically whatever tank spec you're playing, this is a good day for you. even if you're a Vengeance Demon Hunter, this is good news for you. If you're a Vengeance Demon Hunter because you love playing Vengeance, it's totally fine. Your spec is still great. Other specs are also probably catching up now, but you're still at least in the top or tied to the top. And if you're somebody who's playing Vengeance because you felt like you had to, there's a good chance you don't have to anymore. There's a good chance there are other good options. And of course, if you're playing any of these other specs, I mean, it's just all upside. It's all good news. And yeah, this is a great change. It'll go a long way, I think, towards making dungeons a little bit less brutal for tanks. I was advocating for like a 10% auto attack damage reduction from mobs. And I mean, this does it, right? This physical damage reduction column having these numbers in it effectively does that and more, right? It includes that change and a bunch more for all incoming damage. So that's my thoughts on the tank change that's coming out. Curious to know what you think, of course. Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.